The story of the most haunted object on Earth is so scary that even the paranormal investigators who examined it refused to go anywhere near it. And if you look at this strange box, you probably wouldn't believe that it could be dangerous. But what this simple wooden chest lacks in size, it makes up for in evil. This is the most haunted object on Earth, also known as the Dybbuk Box. It was discovered in Poland in the early 20th century and was just another old piece of furniture until it was taken to a new home. Then things started to get weird. People living in the house started having nightmares and getting sick, but that wasn't the worst of it. They also saw a shadowy figure stalking them around the house, sometimes interacting with family members and even hurting them. And nobody could see the spirit except for one person, Helen Acton. She lived in the house with her husband and 2 children when they purchased the box at an antique store. She said she felt something evil inside the box from the moment they brought it into their home. But then things escalated and they needed help. So they called in the priest. Now, we don't know exactly what the priest did. That part of the story has been lost to time. But we do know he didn't find anything, and that's because it would have been very unlikely for him to even see the spirit haunting the box. You see, spirits are only visible to those who can see them, like young children, the elderly, or people who have special gifts. But there is a difference between seeing ghosts and knowing they're there. If you can't see them, you might not realize they're there at all. And since you can't prove their presence, you can't properly deal with them. But Helen knew something was there. She later wrote, "It doesn't haunt the house, it haunts me." At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then she started to see the shadow figure, too. She wasn't alone. Other people saw the figure moving through the house and interacting with the family. And the scariest part was that it seemed to hate Helen and her family. Her son was a teenager when the events took place, and he was the one who actually saw the spirit interact with his sister. He was downstairs when he heard his sister screaming. When he went to check on her, he found her standing next to the box, and she told him there was a little girl in the closet. But when he looked inside the closet, there was nothing there. The ghost was hiding inside the Jewish wine cabinet, and there's a reason why it chose that particular item. In Jewish culture, wine is extremely important, and they often keep it in special cabinets like these. It's not uncommon for these wine cabinets to become family heirlooms, passed down from generation to generation, and that's why the spirit latched onto it. It made the cabinet its home, trapping itself inside and becoming known as a Dybbuk. A Dybbuk is a restless and malicious spirit that can possess humans, causing them to behave erratically and speak in different voices. In some cases, the Dybbuk will use the body to make regular appearances, frightening everyone around them. But Helen's case was much more intense. She was being stalked by a malevolent entity. When she entered the room where the box was kept, the temperature would suddenly drop and she could feel the air grow heavy. That's how she knew the spirit was there. And she also noticed other signs that something was terribly wrong. Her son's artwork, which had always been abstract, suddenly became disturbing. One day he came home from school and drew a picture of a man hanging upside down and labeled it, "Me after I die." He had never drawn anything like that before, and it scared Helen to her core. Not long after that, they left the house, trying to escape the dark presence, but it followed them everywhere, destroying their lives. Eventually, the stress became too much for Helen, and she ended up in the hospital suffering from schizophrenia. She had been so strong and resolute up until that point, but it took its toll on her mind. And here's where the story gets really bizarre. After she was released from the hospital, she returned home to find out that the entity had vanished. She never saw it again, but it still hasn't been found. To this day, the box remains locked away in a private collection, too dangerous to ever show anyone. But there are rumors that the spirit has been unleashed. Unfortunately, there aren't many details available, but it seems likely that the spirit is no longer trapped in the box and is instead loose in the world. But there are other reports of similar boxes appearing in different places, and each one holds a different spirit. If you were to buy one, you might not know what you're bringing into your life. Most of these Dybbuk boxes are simply cursed objects, imbuing whoever owns them with bad luck, making their lives a series of unfortunate events. But others are much worse. Each one contains a unique curse, and you might not survive if you anger it. So, how can you tell if an object is haunted? Well, there are some clues you can look out for. First of all, you may notice strange energy fluctuations in certain rooms or areas. It could be hard to explain, but you'll sense that something isn't right. Then you may start to experience unexplained phenomena, such as objects moving on their own or hearing strange noises in the middle of the night. You may also witness strange occurrences that defy explanation, like lights flickering on and off for no apparent reason. These are all common signs that a spirit is present. Of course, you should also watch out for shadow figures lurking in your peripheral vision. If you turn around, they'll be gone, but you'll know something is there. There may also be other signs you can pick up on, depending on what type of spirit is haunting your home. Some ghosts are mischievous and will move things around, while others are more sinister and may try to harm you. And when dealing with any ghost, you should always remain respectful. If you feel a negative presence in your home, don't try to fight it. Instead, try to communicate with the spirit and determine whether it's angry or just feels lonely. If you can solve whatever problem it's facing, it will move on and leave you alone. But if you encounter a malevolent spirit like a demon, things could get bad quickly. Demons love to torment humans and will find any way possible to do it. That's why you should never allow one into your home. If you think a demon is haunting you, you need to take drastic measures to stop it. The best thing to do is call a priest or an exorcist who can drive the demon out. But what if you don't know what you're dealing with? Well, there are ways to protect yourself against both good and evil spirits. For example, holy water and blessed objects can ward off demons. On the other hand, salt and sage can help clear out negative energy and encourage positive vibes. Of course, you can also try talking to the spirit and asking it to leave peacefully. But that doesn't always work. In fact, sometimes it makes things worse. If the spirit is angry, it may lash out and harm you physically, mentally, or emotionally. But there's no need to worry. There are plenty of ways to defend yourself against ghosts, and it's important to stay calm and rational when dealing with any situation. Most ghosts are harmless and just want to be left alone, but that doesn't mean you should ignore them. If you want to live in peace, you must respect their presence and take action to resolve any issues that may arise. Now watch. Most haunted places in America you won't believe no 3. Or check out terrifying ghost photos caught on camera.